They say even demons go to church, but no one in Izuokoro believed it. Until the day the shadows walked among them, the church doors slammed shut by themselves, and the villagers realized that something from the forest had come to claim their souls. Izuokoro was a modern Nigerian semi-urban town. Quiet, beautiful, organized. Streets were interlocked with neat stones. New bungalows stood side by side in pastel colors. Solar streetlights lined the main road. Children rode bicycles every evening. Kiki and motorcycles hummed past shops painted bright yellow and green. Everything looked normal and peaceful. Right at the center of the town stood New Dawn Fire Ministry, a big modern church with glass doors, bright white walls, shining tiles, and cold air conditioning. LED lights framed the altar. Speakers hung neatly from the ceiling. Huge fans spun lazily. The church was the pride of the town. Nobody knew that something terrible had found its way there. It began on a warm Sunday morning. Families poured into the church. Cars drove in. Parents held their children's hands. Ushers in clean blue and white uniforms welcomed people with smiles. The choir rehearsed gently. The keyboard hummed softly. Everything looked perfectly normal. Then Adiz walked in. A quiet girl in her early 20s, home from university. She always came early to church. She wore a simple gown and held her phone as she walked inside. Immediately, she felt something strange. The hall was cold, but not the normal AC cold. This cold felt heavy, as if the air itself was watching her. The LED lights flickered once. The back of the hall felt darker than usual, as if the shadows had gathered there. She paused. Her footsteps echoed too loudly on the tiled floor. When she stopped walking, the echo continued for one more second. She frowned and looked back. Nothing. She shook it off and sat down. As service began, the pastor smiled warmly, dressed in a neat navy blue agbada. The choir lined up. The congregation clapped. The projector screen flashed the title of the worship song. Then something changed. The microphone let out a deep hum, so deep it made the floor vibrate. The lights flickered twice. The projector glitched. A strange whisper passed through the hall like wind, yet the windows were closed. The choir started singing. Their voices sounded normal for a few seconds. Then one microphone sparked. The keyboard produced a long, eerie note nobody played. The bass speaker rumbled with a low growl. People turned, confused. And then they saw her, standing at the back of the church. Very tall. Thin like a shadow stretched too far. Her hair, long, tangled, dirty, dragged on the tiled floor like black rope soaked in dust. She wore what looked like a torn dress from another time. Her face was not visible. Not covered, just not there. Only darkness. Hollow space. Her hands were long and hanging. Her fingers slightly curved as if reaching for something invisible. The air around her bent strangely, like heat waves but cold. She did not move at first. She just stood there. Someone gasped. Someone else dropped their Bible. A baby began to cry uncontrollably. Then she took her first step. Her hair lifted slightly as if blown by a wind that touched no one else. The lights flickered. The speakers hissed. Every fan slowed to a stop. The pastor tried to speak, but the microphone fell out of his hand. She took another step. Children clung to their parents. Several people stood up trying to rush out, but the glass doors slammed shut, hard enough to shake the building. She continued walking down the aisle, slow, calm, unnatural. Then she spoke. Her voice was not loud. It was not angry. It was simply wrong. I have waited. People froze instantly. Her voice wasn't one voice. It sounded like many women whispering at the same time, layered over each other. echoing from the walls, the floor, the ceiling. "I have walked the places you have forgotten," she said. "I have returned." The pastor stepped back. The church became colder. Then the power went out. The LED lights, the fans, the speakers, the projector. Everything died at once. The church fell into dim, gloomy lighting from the small emergency bulbs on the wall. That was when the real torment began. From that day on, Iziaokoro changed. At night, street lights flickered violently. Security dogs barked at empty air until morning. Phones rang with unknown numbers at odd hours. People heard footsteps in their corridors around 2:15 a.m. Children refused to sleep, pointing at something standing near the window. Women washing plates outside in the evening felt long hair brush their backs, but when they turned, no one was there. Men coming home late saw a female figure pass between streetlights, her hair sweeping the ground, but when they tried to describe her face, they always said, "She had no face." She visited schools, playgrounds, homes. Lights flickered, walls creaked. People heard someone humming a slow, broken tune of a lullaby. But no one saw her clearly. Nobody knew why she came. Nobody knew what she wanted. The elders gathered in fear. They remembered an old story from decades ago, of a woman who had lived near the deep parts of the forest. A woman who was wronged by the old community. A woman who disappeared mysteriously, whose name became a forbidden whisper. Her spirit had been restless even then. Now she walked again, through a modern world that never expected her return. The torment grew worse. Phones recorded shadows moving behind people. Doors opened on their own. The wind smelled like old smoke and dusty hair. Every night, someone said they heard a woman crying softly. Something had to be done. One night, after too many sleepless weeks, the elders met secretly at the pastor's house. They decided they would try to trap her spirit, not destroy her, because spirits like her could not be destroyed. They needed a circle of salt and ash, a bright modern floodlight, a reflective glass bowl, and the most powerful item, the original altar stone from the church, now kept in the storage room after renovation. They prepared the church at midnight. The lights flickered. Wind blew inside even though the doors were closed. The elders' hands shook as they drew the circle. The pastor placed the altar stone in the center. Then they waited. She came, slowly, standing in the doorway, hair dragging along the tiles, face hidden in darkness. The AC switched on by itself, blasting cold air. The lights flickered violently. The projector glitched. The microphones shook. She stepped into the church. The moment she crossed the circle, the floodlight flashed. She screamed. Not a loud scream, but a chilling one, like 100 whispering voices crying at once. The shadows wrapped around her. Her hair lifted like it was underwater. Her body flickered like glitching static. The altar stone glowed faintly. The elders prayed. The pastor shouted. The windows rattled. The air twisted. The floor vibrated. She tried to step out of the circle, but the boundary held her. With one final jolt, her shadowy form collapsed inward, twisting and shrinking until it pulled into the altar stone glowing on the floor. The floodlight burst. The church became silent. The elders looked at the stone. It was no longer dull. It pulsed faintly like it had a heartbeat. They buried it deep under the church floor. Layers of tiles covered it. Nobody touched it again. Iziaokoro returned to normal.